We're back with a new episode of Cage Side, The Art of Fighting. We're a little different now, a little different branding, a new look. It's a new year, why not, right? Everybody's trying to do new me, new this. So I figured I'd take the show into a little bit more of my style of things. So new logos, new imagery a little bit. And with that, different types of interviews too. So not just fighters and people talking about, not breaking down the fights. That's not really what I do. I don't break down fights. There's better channels for that. There's better people for that. But I do like talking fighting. I do like talking with fighters. And I enjoy the whole aspect of fighting. So everything from the hard work in the gym, right, to the nutrition and to the lifestyle and the backgrounds and all this stuff. There's a lot of interesting people that kind of touch fighters along the way, and not, they usually don't get the spotlight, or just, people don't really dive into it too much. So that's kind of what I'm more into. So today, specifically on this episode, we went that way. I thought, since there's no fights this weekend, what better person to get on than a nutritionist, a weight cutting specialist, somebody who works with the biggest fighters out there. Ian Larios, I've been following him for a bit now. He's the best of the best out there, and he works with fighters that and he's instrumental in the things that these people eat, and the things that these people have to do as they approach fight day. Just a very important part of fighting. Super interesting guy, super interesting background. He's currently in Bali, so timing this was fun, and I think it's just it's a great part of fighting that everybody kind of needs to be more aware of. So with that said, here is Ian Larios. But dude, thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
So I'll tell you a little bit about what I know about you. I've been following you for a bit, and I actually caught on to your story when you were talking about wanting to move to Bali. So that's where you're at right now, right?
Yeah. I'm in Bali in Indonesia right now. Used to live here. Moved out here right before the pandemic. And then my visa situation was still getting sorted. So had to go back to the States to kind of get that sorted, and didn't want the island to close and kind of get stuck here because I had a bunch of camps coming up. I had DC's camp coming up. So it was just one of those things where I had to make the decision to either stay and kind of wait it out, or play it on the safe side and go back to the States and kind of wait it out a little bit, where it ended up working out because obviously the UFC was putting on a bunch of fights during the pandemic. But
yeah.
I wouldn't mind getting stuck here, worst case scenario, if that was the case.
So what's the kind of the living situation where you're at right there in Bali? Like, are you are you on the beach, or where, like, paint a picture of where you're kind of living these days?
I'm about 5 minutes from the beach, so I have a house here. Jump on the scooter, 5 minutes to the beach, 3 minutes to the gym. So perfectly kind of centrally located between everywhere I spend my time. And then there's a gym I train at called Body Factory that I go to every day, and they got like a beautiful sauna, cold plunge, everything there. So I kind of
nice.
I'm everywhere. Yeah, everywhere where I need to go is close, and there's a bunch of beaches around here. So the closest one's about 5 minutes.
Where did you grow up though?
I actually grew up internationally, but I was born in Reno, Nevada. My parents are international school teachers, so I grew up traveling, and only lived in the States for school and college, and then for a few months when I was born, and then we went to Malaysia, Peru, Venezuela, Czech Republic. So I've lived all over, so kind of transitioning to living here was more normal than when I went back home to go to school, and kind of adapting to American culture and being American, but not really knowing much about what life was like in the States.
So how long did you spend in the States?
Total, I'm 27. I probably spent 4 years in the States.
Oh wow.
Total.
Okay.
Yeah, 5 years. 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So are you trying to make Bali like a stationary home for a long time, or are you just the type of guy who's just going to be constantly kind of hopping around?
Well, I mean, with my work, I'm constantly kind of jumping back and forth. I definitely want this place to kind of be like my my base camp. So I'm here. I have everything I need here training wise. All my friends are here. And so just kind of be based out of here, and then when kind of the world goes back to normal, just fly out whenever I need to for camps. And this is kind of my happy place. So when camps are over, come back home, relax a little bit, train, and kind of just be able to have some me time here.
So I'm originally from Puerto Rico. Have you been to Puerto Rico before?
I have.
Is there any comparison there between Bali and Puerto Rico for somebody like me who hasn't been that way?
It's somewhat similar, but out here, I mean, it depends where you go. It's definitely a lot more hectic here at times.
Okay.
But yeah, as far as like the rainforest and all that goes, it's kind of the same like climate.
Okay.
But definitely humid.
Yeah.
Definitely humid.
So how did you get into this whole thing, man? You know, what's kind of your background, and how did you get into the whole nutrition and coaching in that sense?
So I grew up. My mom's a health teacher, so I grew up in a super health conscious home. Always loved cooking. I grew up kind of in the kitchen. That was kind of like my first interest was cooking. I'd spend all my time kind of at home and just cooking for my parents, cooking for the family, and that's really where it kind of like sparked my interest. And then I became a UFC fan, and just randomly, I think I was just watching old fights on YouTube, and then just became obsessed with watching fights. Pretty much all I did was cook and watch fights. And so the goal became to be a chef for fighters. I didn't really know anything about weight cutting or that these guys cut weight. And then as I grew up, I realized that there was a huge... these guys were cutting lots of weight in most cases, and it was going to be an opportunity for me to, if I wanted to cook for these guys, I needed to learn more about nutrition. So that obviously kind of sparked my interest for nutrition, and I love that as well. So it kind of became where I got to combine all three of my interests with cooking, nutrition, and then obviously being a fight fan into a career.
And then you go ahead and do you jump in straight into the whole Lockhart world, or do you start with other like smaller fighters and kind of build your way there?
So I went to school for a little bit in Vegas, and I had the opportunity to go to Thailand and do an internship at Tiger Muay Thai. There was a chef there at the time that was willing to take me under his wing if I came out there, and he wasn't too big on the nutrition side, but they were kind of transitioning towards that. They were changing up what they were doing at the restaurant at Tiger, and so I was wanting to help with that. And so he's like, if you get a ticket out here, and you can find a place to stay, come out here and you can do it. And I bought a ticket the next day, walked into work, quit my job, and I think I was flying to Thailand within the next probably 2 weeks, to go live there as long as I had to kind of get some experience and get in front of the right people. And then I had a chance encounter with one of the gym owners here in Bali, just randomly at a restaurant. And I came to Bali a lot growing up because when we were in Malaysia, it was just a 3-hour flight. So we'd spend Christmases here. And my goal was always to live here. That was the dream, to move to Bali and live in Bali as an adult. And Andrew was saying how Andrew's the gym owner here in Bali. He was saying how they're going to move to Bali and open up a gym. And so I kind of followed him on Facebook, and I was like, man, that'd be awesome to be able to go to Bali like early on and kind of be the guy there. Because Tiger had lots of people coming in to Phuket just because it's such a big training hub. There's this called they call it Fight Street, and there's probably 5-6 Muay Thai, MMA gyms, Jiu-Jitsu gyms, and a bunch of like health food restaurants on the street. So it's pretty saturated in terms of like, if I was trying to get my foot in the door and like work with fighters, there's so many options. But I just chose the guys that had the least amount of money to get experience with, and worked with them for free in Thailand. And then they opened up the gym in Bali, so I was like, I'm gonna try things out in Bali. Shot over to Bali, and it was like literally the day, maybe a week after the gym opened. There was 2 fighters here, and the Super Brothers. They fight for 1 championship, so they were like my first real paying clients. They started their camps, and yeah, there was really no one here quite yet. It was a new gym, and they were still trying to kind of get the word out there. And so yeah, they were like my first clients here, and that's when I was about 22. So I've been back and forth to the States and Bali for the past 6 years, and yeah, the goal was always to settle down here. But when I had the chance to join George's team and the Lockhart team, I had to make the decision to go back home. And that's home. Whereas it's like, is it home? But go back to the States.
Where are they based out of? Are they here on the East Coast, or are they in Vegas?
So George is from Atlanta and Dan's from Michigan, but they basically just wanted me to live in the States.
Okay.
Like, they didn't say that, but all the fights were in the States. They weren't really doing international cards until I came on board. Every now and then they would, but I kind of needed to be based in the U.S. to have a good crack at it, because they were trying to bring a few people on board, and it was going to be a competitive, like, who was going to be their main guy at first. Right. And I wanted that to be me. So I smuggled my dog, who I rescued here, because you can't get dogs off the island. So I had to literally find a dog smuggler on Facebook and gave him the rest of the money I saved up to get my dog back home. Got her back to. She flew in. Wait.
How did they smuggle the dog? Did they have to get it out like on a boat? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, so they put her in a car. So they picked her up, put her in a car, which goes to a boat, and then they take the boat. And it's like I think it was a 2-week journey she had, all by land, but she took like every transportation available. She took like a train, a boat, a car, to a plane. And so that's just to go to Jakarta, because when she's in Jakarta, which is here in Indonesia, she can fly out. So she had to fly from Jakarta to San Francisco, which is still 20 plus hours of travel. So she had a
that's love for a pet.
Yeah, I couldn't leave her behind. She was I had nothing out here, you know. I was still trying to make some money, and we were I was surviving off fight week per diems and a little bit of money that the fighters would give me, because we were all still trying to kind of come up in the sport, and we were all living together, and she was always there, and yeah, she had to come back home with me, because she was there for when it was when we were eating rice and chicken and couldn't afford dog food.
Right. You gotta take her with you.
Take her with me.
So I mean, for whoever doesn't know, you know, who the guys you're mentioning, who you work with, you know, George, and these at this level, which a lot of people have, you know, have gotten to know them. They become more popular in the spotlight with fighting. But we're talking the best of the best fighters use you guys.
Yeah.
We're talking. I'll mention 2 names just to set it out there. They work with McGregor. They work with Tyson Fury. Correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, on the 2 different sports, those are, you know, the two biggest names right there. And and not only are they responsible for one fight camp, but it's repetitive, which means that these guys are making weight, these guys are healthy, and these guys are looking better than ever. So that's just the caliber. Now, and then obviously specific to you. Now you can please add more names, because from just seeing you, I know DC, Cody, Paul Felder, our Philly guy.
Yeah.
Aldana, you work with Aldana too?
Yeah, work with Aldana.
Who else have you recently worked with?
Worked with Kane when he was fighting.
Same fight camp as, you know, same DC group. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff Neal, Luke Rockhold. Man, honestly, on every we have guys on every single fight card. And through the pandemic, I was working with a lot of guys, but because the way the UFC was structuring it, we were having to do it kind of remotely.
Oh wow!
So we weren't really sharing that as much as we normally do. So we kind of had to adapt like a lot through the pandemic. So we were still in Florida, but we were having to kind of coach these guys remotely and through FaceTime, and so that was definitely a new change. But as far as the rest of the guys I worked with this year, Paul Felder, obviously Philly.
By the way, one of the craziest weight cuts, last minute fights out there.
Absolutely crazy. And the only guy that I could confidently say that would get that done on short notice like that, realistically it was 4 days, is Paul. And it was great that he was in training for a marathon and light, but he definitely wasn't light, but he got it done. And by far one of the craziest weight cuts I've been part of, and I've been part of some weight cuts.
Right.
I've been part of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of weight cuts all over the world. And that's definitely one of them. So
I want to get into the nitty-gritty about that stuff because I'm super curious about it, and I think it's an art that's not appreciated probably as much as it should, and it's a huge part of fighting. It's a must, right, when it comes to fighting.
Yeah.
But so real quick, Fight Island, does that benefit you where you're located? Like, do you have any guys coming up in the next 3 weeks?
I do, but I'm not going to be going. So I'm going to kind of just be doing remote coaching on that card as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely closer to here. But if I were to have any fighters that I was doing camps with, I would have to fly back to the States, do those camps, and then fly to Fight Island from there. So it'd be actually more travel because then I have to fly back to the States and then back to here.
So so is there two kind of tiers to how you work? It's like the remote coaching is a little bit more kind of closer to the fights, where if you are working with with a name or whatever it might be, and you're part of the camp, you're there almost living with the guy, right, or girl.
Yeah, I'm 100% living with the guy. Pretty much attached to their hip for the whole camp. So with DC, usually do about 8 weeks with him. So I'm living with his family, staying in his guest room, going everywhere he goes. I'm part of the family for 8+ weeks.
Now, how do they perceive you when you're probably the guy who's going to make everybody cranky at some point because you're the one helping them cut weight and get cranky because of cutting weight?
Yeah, you're the guy that
you're the reason for the problem.
Where they'll be mad at you, but they'll love you too.
Of course.
Once they make weight, But with DC, I only did some of a fight at light heavyweight, and the rest of the fights were at heavyweight. So
that's easy peasy.
Yeah, it was kind of just cleaning up his habits and just helping him recover, and just more so just really focused on getting him to the fight healthy, injury free, and just healthy. So they were fun camps, like we weren't too worried about being at a calorie deficit or anything like that, like we'd have to be when he's cutting down all that weight. Mm-hmm. It's more so just performance based. So if he's doing well in the gym, recovering well, then I'm doing my job.
So the nutrition aspect is something that you handle. Do you factor in things they like, and then kind of cater menus to that?
Big time. Yeah, so kind of like, especially DC, he's very, very picky. So it took me a couple tries with him, and then I kind of knew exactly what he liked. And then he started loving Thai food, so I was doing healthy renditions of Thai food, Indian food, kind of just cleaning up and doing healthy versions of Indian food. And obviously he's from Louisiana, so doing healthy versions of like gumbo and stuff like that he loved. Now, and he couldn't tell the difference between towards the end of camp, once I got really good at making, he couldn't tell the difference between an unhealthy gumbo and my gumbo. So
that's good. That's a lot to say.
Good, feather in my cap.
Yep. Now, what's the family dynamic? Like, does the family eat their own thing and make their own thing, and you're just like, you're cooking in their kitchen, but just for DC or whoever you're training at that point?
Usually, I mean, the best way to like have the fighter be happy with you is to make sure the wife is happy. So I always cook for the wife and like make sure like she's eating good too and loves the food, because that takes a big stress off her back too. Because like she doesn't have to cook and they have kids.
Yeah.
And she's worried that she's cooking for the kids. So I'll usually just cook for the wives too, just to like make it easier and to be on their good side.
Right. You got to keep the family peace.
Got to keep the family peace. Yeah, and I mean through good food, it's easy.
Now, and I see you. So when I see you like working out with the guys, or kind of always part of sitting down with them while they're in the middle of cutting weight. So you take a lot of that. You take the brunt of that work too, right? So you're physically needing to be fit and kind of hang with them just to kind of vibe and see what they need during the.
Yep. And then I know what they're going through as well, because I've done tons of weight cuts. I used to cut weight and do water loads and test it on myself before I tested on anybody else. Like that's what I used to spend my time doing. Like when all my friends were partying, I was water loading. So it was like I've been there. I know how they're feeling. The only difference is like I haven't gone out and fought the next night, but I've gone and I've done tests on like endurance and gone and sparred and after a weight cut and like tested it that way. So like I've been in the positions they have. I've cut over 17, 18 pounds in 24 hours.
Jesus.
So I've been there.
Right.
And that gives you kind of that intangible experience where it's like I know what they're going through to an extent. I know how they feel. So I'm not just that guy that's sitting on the outside and tapping on the glass and putting my fingers up for how much more time they have in that sauna or sitting next to the bath and telling them how much time they have. Because I've been in there and it's a very vulnerable position,
Right.
So making sure it's the safest possible and making sure I'm there to comfort them and make sure that they're in good hands is my number one priority. And I think that's why I have such a great relationships with all the guys I work with, guys and girls I work with.
So where does so usually the week of the fight is when you start, the water loading and the cutting the water weight. What's too late for like if you're dealing with a fighter who's on a calorie deficit just to get them to a certain weight? When is it too late? Like is it 2 weeks out where you kind of know where you're at?
It's gonna vary. It's like if guys are carrying a lot of muscle, it's gonna be easier just because
it holds a lot of water.
It holds a lot of water. If
Right.
guys are out of shape and guys are not fat, but like guys are just fatter than they usually are, that's when it's already gonna be a doozy. That's when it's gonna be a struggle because they're not in the shape they're normally in. Their body's not kind of ready and accustomed to training and working hard and being at a calorie deficit. So I'd say that's when it's too late, when guys are too heavy and kind of coming off the couch. And we saw that a lot during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Where guys would take fights and miss weight by a significant amount, just because they weren't training like they normally are. They were heavier. A lot of guys didn't know if the UFC was going to have fights during the pandemic, so they were kind of sitting at home. And a lot of people didn't even have the option of leaving their homes.
Right.
So when you're stuck at home and bored, most people are kind of just eating things they're not supposed to be eating, or they're just eating more and moving less.
Right.
So, but in terms of when it's too late, it's gonna vary. I mean, if you're taking a fight short notice and you haven't been training, it's gonna be rough, Sorry, a bug just flew in my eye. But yeah, as far as it's better to be ready year-round, kind of just have a structured diet and a weight you will can't go over. If you start getting close to those numbers, dial it back.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell all my guys. Like, you can't get over this weight. And
right, just to give you a comfortable.
Tell me.
They don't want to tell you.
No, most of the time they'll get over that weight and not tell me. I could just see it in their face, or I could see it in pictures.
Right.
And
you're like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for 1 minute that you're that way that you're saying.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Exactly. And so I like to guys have them get back to the weight that I told them not to get over by themselves. Because
Gotcha.
like, that's on them. You know, like I'll help them from there, but like I told them not to get over that weight, and if they do, it's like, man, like you got to talk to me when you're within a reasonable amount, and I'm more than happy to help you.
Right.
But you can't be eating multiple Snicker bars at night at 12 o'clock and
Right.
having Captain Crunch at 2 a.m. As good as
that sounds, right? After burning all those calories, I'm sure, training or whatever.
When you're in the sauna and when you're in the bath, 8 weeks down the road, and you're hurting, those are the decisions that you made a few weeks down the road that are going to kind of impact how difficult this process is going to be.
So, to just kind of dial it into a normal human, non-athlete performer, what is like what are the main things you think if people are trying to be healthy and lose weight at a good rate? What are like the thing? Is it all just strictly clean eating? Like, what's the one thing that you would offer that's different?
For regular people, is just minimizing the processed food you eat and just moving as much as you can. Obviously now with gyms being closed wherever in certain places, but if you can really focus on the quality of food you're eating and the water you're drinking, I mean, drink water before you eat, drink water with a meal, eat a clean, unprocessed meal, with some good clean protein, and obviously people say eat your vegetables. I'm big on eating your vegetables. If you get a couple of handfuls of vegetables, a cup of vegetables with each meal, you'll be taking steps towards your goals. And that's the biggest thing that I tell people. It's like, especially after New Year's, you know, you set these big goals for yourself. Some people are like, oh, I want to go to the gym 6 times a week. And last year they only went to the gym 2 times or 1 time a week. It's like you're setting these big goals for yourself, which is great if you can kind of stay accountable to them. But if you go 4 times, like, you're already not hitting that goal, you know? So it's not a realistic goal for a lot of people.
Right.
So setting realistic goals and realistic expectations for yourself is one thing I try to really tell people at this time of year, just because if people get excited, it's January 1st, like, let's get it. I'm all on board for that. But I also don't like to see people like, like, I missed 2 sessions last week, like, and they start like.
Well, then you hit that dark side, and then you hit the dark side, and then you want to eat the Captain Crunch at 3 in the morning, and then you say, I might as well since I didn't. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So then you start that self-sabotage effect of it.
Right.
And so that's the biggest thing I try to tell people is like set good goals, and then like let's say if it's 3 times a week, and you're crushing it, then the next month let's bump it up to 4 and see how that goes, and really monitor your eating and set goals that you can be proud of yourself of at the end of the month. And be like, man, I stayed accountable to myself, and I stayed accountable to my body, and that's the biggest thing. It's like I've been there before too, where I've set big goals for myself and then realized that I was biting off a little bit more than I could chew schedule wise.
Yeah.
And I had to dial it back, but not get completely off the tracks.
All right, so I know you got to go. You know, we have a 13-hour time difference, so I know you're about to start your day, and I'm slowly ending it. But I have 3 questions for you, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
So, if you can't say who gets the crankiest during the weight cut eating process, healthy eating process, then give me who has like the funnest camp. If you can give me both, great. But I get it. I don't want you throwing anybody under the bus.
The funnest camp. DC's camps are a blast. DC's camps, the whole crew he has around him. DC himself is always a fun guy to be around, especially for 8 weeks straight. So I definitely say DC and his entourage for his camp are. Yeah, that I'd definitely say. I miss those camps, you know, and those were just, that was like 5 months ago, but I'm definitely gonna miss those camps now that he's kind of now that he's retired
Yeah.
and focusing on other things. So that's definitely a camp that I'm gonna miss. Just camps at AKA are great. All the guys, like I've worked with Luke, I've worked with Kane. The energy at AKA is something special, and they got a bunch of cool guys over there, and that's always a camp that I enjoy doing. And San Jose feels a little bit like home,
Right.
When I go out there.
Awesome. Philly. Have you been to Philly?
I have. I actually worked the Philly card in. When was that Philly
That
card?
was Gaethje
Gaethje and
Barboza. That was a great fight. Yeah.
Great fight, wild fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked that card, but we stayed in. I don't know where we stayed. We didn't stay in Philly though. We stayed in. It was like, I'm awful at my states. I'm gonna say Delaware. Is Delaware?
Oh wow. Yeah, you could. Yeah, definitely. Delaware, Jersey. You're there.
Yeah, no, we definitely.
But why did you stay in Delaware? That's weird.
We stayed at the Crown, like the Crown Plaza or something in Delaware. And
Okay.
It was like, I felt like we went in a time machine, and it was like, because the gym next to the hotel was like, out of like the 70s. It was weird, but
right.
I guess the UFC couldn't find enough space for the. I think they booked the hotel late or something that week because it was.
Gotcha. You can always rely on Delaware to have a little more space availability than Philly. Yeah.
For sure.
That's funny. So is there anything that sticks out to you Philly-wise? Philly food, Philly location, or we're going to have to wait for you to come back?
I didn't really get to see a lot. I definitely had to do Philly with Paul because every time I've been with Paul, there's all these spots in Philly that he always talks about in terms of food, his favorite bars. But during fight weeks, I had 6 guys on that card, so I was so busy that I really didn't get to do much. But I think I went to one famous breakfast spot there. I forgot the name of it. It's right in downtown, and it's usually got like a huge line. That's pretty much all I really got to do. I was pretty much stuck in the hotel room.
Yeah.
In Delaware.
And, eating a Delaware cheesesteak instead of a Philly cheesesteak. Oh man.
Yeah, I haven't had an actual Philly cheesesteak. Oh wait, no, that's a lie. I did have a Philly cheesesteak. We did go out and have a Philly cheesesteak.
Okay, that's good.
Right before we went to the airport.
All right. So, I won't even ask you which one because that takes us to a whole different conversation. Which place you get it from? That's I
don't want to say the wrong one, so
yeah.
I'll say I forgot which one it was.
All right, good. Well, whenever you come back, we'll take you around and we'll do something fun if you have time.
Sweet.
And the last question, I love that you're a fight fan because as many fighters and random people that I try to talk to on this show, it's not always that you get an actual fight fan that you can kind of chat with. Now we don't have too many. Well, we don't have fights this weekend coming up, but what's one fight or one fighter you can't wait to see in the next 3 weeks?
One fighter I can't wait to see in the next 3 weeks. I'm really excited for that Max Holloway Calvin Kattar fight.
That's gonna be wild.
That's gonna be a wild one. I love Max. Max is my boy. I've known Max for a long time, so I'm excited for him. I thought he did enough to beat Volkanovski.
I thought so too, man. That last one was his, I thought.
So I think it's going to be, he's going to come out with something to prove, and Kattar's nasty. He's got that same kind of chip on his shoulder, trying to prove that he's next in line.
Yep.
But I think Max gets the job done there. Obviously, with Connor and Dustin coming up, that's gonna be a great fight. I was really excited for Leon and.
I know, and Kazmat.
But yeah.
That's what, twice that it fell through in like a month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times, and then I guess they're gonna reschedule that. They want that fight to happen, but Chiesa and
Magny.
And Magny's a great fight too.
Yeah.
So obviously, still a big fight, but I definitely want to see how legit Kazmat is, because Leon is no joke, and he's got that same chip on his shoulder where he's on a huge win streak and he's trying to get a title shot.
But Leon needs that credit, that street cred, because with the whole thing that happened with Masvidal, he not only do people not give him enough attention and credit, he needs like a big win over like a guy who's who has the star power, they're pushing kind of thing, to really say, hey, like, I told you I've been here, I told you I'm good.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And people forget, like he hasn't fought in over a year and a
Then it's been a while. Yeah.
When did you fight RDA?
Been a bit.
A while ago, and so people forget. People only remember what you did last, and I mean, if it was a while ago, it's like, what have you done lately? And Cosma has just been running through guys. I mean, obviously they're not top 10, top 15 guys in the world,
but it's not a bad way to start your UFC career.
If you get punched once in or whatever it is, in 2 fights, you're something special. So it'll be interesting to see how good he is, and I'm hoping they just reschedule that fight and it happens later down the road.
Yeah. I think, is it Hooker and Chandler for the same McGregor card?
Yeah. They just said that's a scrap too.
Dude, not only is that a scrap, that's a great, showing off party for Chandler. Like, I wasn't sure when they were gonna put him against anybody, but against Hooker and in the McGregor card,
Yeah, I was hoping they were gonna give him Paul.
That would have been great. Yeah.
But Dan's a great fight. Chandler's gonna have his hands full. But we'll see how he transitions to kind of being in the UFC. And I mean, Dan's had some wars his past 2 fights, with Paul
and Poirier. Yeah.
And Poirier, and I mean, he almost finished us in that. I think it was that 3rd round, where he hurt him pretty bad. And I mean, Dan's a problem for anyone in the division, So it'll be interesting to see how Chandler does, and that's such a great fight too. So whoever wins that fight, obviously, is going to get a huge fight next. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with that division too, just because.
Do you think they offer the title to the winner of Conor Poirier, or do they fight for the title after that? Because that's not for the belt, right? But I heard something.
It's not for the belt. I think it's gonna. If Conor wins, I think Khabib will come back.
You think so?
I think they'll have enough negotiating power to get Khabib back. If Dustin wins, I think Khabib will stay retired.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, unless like GSP comes back at 55 or something, and like they fight for that belt,
I doubt it.
Something crazy like that happens,
Do you think Conor, Khabib? So were you around when Khabib was around, being obviously with DC?
Yeah. The cool thing was last camp with DC, Khabib was training for Gaethje. It was
Poirier, probably.
Poirier, yeah. When he fought Poirier in Abu Dhabi, he was in camp. So he finished his camp a little bit before DC's fight against Stipe, the second one. And so yeah, I was there the whole time Khabib was in the room, and it's a different energy, man. When all the Dagestanis are in town,
I bet.
Different energy. And I've been to Dagestan before, and you can see why it breeds hard people.
Right.
It's a wild place.
Yeah.
And so there's only more and more savages coming out of there.
I know.
I mean, I think there's only one American champion now. And
isn't that crazy? They have taken over.
we used to have all the belts,
Yeah.
And now it's Brazil, Russia. It's Brazil and Russia seem to be the new. Well, Brazil's always been there, but Russia seems to be the kind of country that's coming up and breeding that next generation of just world class.
Which is great because it only pushes everybody else forward. The Americans push forward because they got to compete at that level, and it's just everybody kind of makes everybody better. So can't hurt.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year. So I mean, hopefully, crowds come back. But
yeah,
fights have been crazy. With the whole pandemic, the UFC's really kind of stepped outside of what other sports were doing, and I've worked a few fight weeks now, and the whole Fight Island, like their protocols for it, and the whole thing is all the logistics is just crazy. What they've been able to do and what they've been able to kind of just figure out in a short period of time is crazy. Like the Fight Island was sick.
Yeah.
Like the whole setup and everything was just crazy. The logistics of that are probably a complete nightmare. But the fact that they're getting that done and with such big fights, is so impressive, and it makes me proud of the UFC and the fighters being part of it, and like what they've done, and it's helped a lot of people through this. I mean, there's been weeks where like I wasn't working, and we're in the pandemic, and it was like that's what I was looking forward to was these fights. You know, it gave us something to look forward to, and got these guys paid where they could feed their families, and kept people entertained. And I think that's the most important thing right now, especially all over the world. It needs it.
Yep, I agree. Perfect way to end it, man. Here's to more fighting, right? This year's going to be a good one, I think.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I think a lot of people had a lot of time to figure out exactly what makes them happy when they had a lot of things kind of taken away and out of their control. So I think this is a year a lot of people kind of slowly get back to the new normal and do the things that make them happy. And I mean, I realize how important time with family is. Like, I haven't got to spend a lot of time with my family as an adult, or my parents as an adult. So going back to the States and working on recipes with my dad and all that was awesome. So it's kind of newfound, just laying low, and the importance of like this time with yourself and time with your family. I didn't realize how important that is. And man, I was living out my backpack for the past 2.5 years. I was going to every single UFC card all over the world, and it was great. You know, it was great. It kept me busy. But then, like, when I kind of slowed down, I realized, like, I was like, damn, that was 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Zoom by.
Yeah.
Zoom by.
Yeah.
You know? So, it definitely lots of stamps on my passport, but I'm definitely enjoying the low time here, training. And I think Bali is the best place in the world to be right now. I mean, they closed down 8 months ago, so the COVID cases are relatively low here.
Okay.
So it's pretty normal. Like, it's weird. This, like, you'll see, like, restaurants are pretty packed, and it's
man, it's all bizarre, and everybody's doing it different, and it's almost like you just gotta, I don't know, we gotta let it happen. You know, it'll slowly get back to normal. You gotta focus on yourself, man. Because
if you get caught up trying to worry about what that guy's doing or who that person's not wearing them, it's a whole nother can of worms, you know. So just focus on your happiness, focus on what you can control, and
exactly.
That's what I learned through all this is be in control of what you can, and what you can't control is not worth getting fired.
No, not worth the stress, man. You're not going to be able to fix it. So, you know, stay healthy, wear a mask, man. That's all you can do. So, but all right, brother. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on, man. Anytime you want to chat fights, I'm here.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'm there, man.
That was Ian Larios coming at you from Bali. Cool dude. Great story. Awesome tips for all you non-fighters out there like myself. You know, small commitments. You know, little by little. Don't commit to something too crazy, and you'll be all right. So that was it. Another episode of Cage Side. See you guys next week.